So, SD core, should the SD core Helm charts work out of the box? These are the ones that have been, let me see, yeah. That is, should users be able to join or be able to deploy the SD core by running Helm install without having to rely on Aether on-ramp or Aether in a box?
So, yeah, that's an item that I put in there because I saw that there is like 2 or 3 users trying to use only the Helm charts directly to deploy the SD core. And of course, by default, they don't get deployed. I mean, there are a couple of things that need to be modified. And those things are being overwritten using either the values file, either from Aether on ramp or from Aether in the box. Because for an example, the UPF by default tries to deploy in DPDK mode, right? So that's the, and of course, if somebody just wants to deploy it as it is, the UPF is not going to start because there is not going to be by default SRV devices already configured in the Kubernetes cluster. And then a few more kind of settings like resources enabled, things like that. So users have primarily reported issues with the UPF not starting and the NRF basically start getting into the crash loop back mode. So from the UPF perspective, what I'm bringing this to the TST is that's what I mean, I don't have that much historical background on the creation of the UPF Helm charts. So when comparing to the rest of the Helm charts, the UPF Helm charts are more like, not necessarily complex, but they do have more stuff in there, many more templates. But we don't necessarily are using those additional templates. And once last year, I tried to use kind of the monitoring, the service monitoring from those templates actually didn't work. So that's what I'm kind of trying to bring this up to see. And I was hoping, you know, Agile may join or somebody who has more historical background on why, you know, how it makes sense to me for the UPF being deployed by default in DPDK mode, because that's the most performant mode, right? But for that, there is several prerequisites that need to be complied to be able to deploy in that case. So for the case of Aether in a box or on-ramp, we actually use the UPF in AF packet mode, right? So in that, we don't need the amount of prerequisites that are needed for the case of DPDK.
What was the name of the alternate mode?
Oh, AF underscore packet.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
UPF. Yeah, no, is that in my general, again, general packet?
Yeah, packet, sorry.
Yeah, so that's kind of the general thing, especially again, I have seen like 2-3 users that a couple comments on Slack and also on the Helm charts open an issue about that, right? But at least again, so far as what information I have, like historical data that I have, is that I don't see that that was meant to be deployed as you know, use the Helm charts by themselves to deploy the
right. So is your question to Ajay, should the default of the charts be AF packet mode?
Partially, yes. That's partial my question. The other part is again, I was trying to get some details of the decision on a DPDK mode, but of course, in that case, again, we need some prerequisites to be able to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Well, it's not necessarily just for Ajay, but for somebody who has been working on the SD core, you know, before I joined the team.
We don't have battery either today, I think.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, why don't we
But
push
anyway,
these to
yeah.
next?
So
Although, it would, if those helm charts are supposed to work, my simplistic view on this is it should be as easy as possible to run in the most generic environment so that people have a good positive first experience turning it up versus struggling. Right.
Oh, yes. So that I fully align with that, and that would be my expectation. And again, that is in this case, since we typically deploy the SD core in the past using Ether in a box, and now using Ether on ramp. So basically, we have these SD core values YAML file that overrides whatever the values file in the Helm charts is. Right. So since we have this additional values file that is that overrides that, so that works as expected. But in my case, again, I don't know whether it was intentional to always deploy Ether, the SD core using Ether in a box or Ether on ramp, not directly from Helm chart. So that's more my question, and I don't have that much historical information on that.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So, I mean, what we could do is, put this in the agenda for the next meeting. That we should revisit this.
Sure. Yeah, I can also try to kind of see if I can have a quick sync up with Ajay to see if he has some details on this.
Yeah. Oops. What did I do? Keyboard strokes and working as I expected here. About what is it? SD core. Yeah. Okay. So if we'll be sure to cover it next week if we get back around to it. I should make that SD. Okay. All right then, Gabriel. SD-RAN. So yeah, is there a release planned in August? So this, I don't know who left this comment. It's much too tightly coupled with other components, especially ONAS API.
Sure, I did. So basically, SD-RAN, we are under release preparation. But for that, actually, we are upgrading some dependencies and Go version 2. Currently, SD-RAN Go version is 1.19, where some components are still using 1.17. So I would like to improve that. Bump it up to the latest Go. But the problem is, SD-RAN microservices are depending on each other, which means if we bump up some version, then not only for SD-RAN, but also for other ONOS components, including ROC, should be updated too. It's too much work. We spent a lot of time already, more than 2 months to resolve it, but still we could not find it, only to bump up the SD-RAN. So at this time, for the release SD-RAN 1.5, we will just use the legacy Go version at this time without any kind of dependency update. And then I will try to figure it out. One of the approaches, like defined in this second bullet, we can separate SD-RAN leak from the micro ONOS namespace. Just SD-RAN just uses its own microservices, but we can still say SD-RAN inherits design and code from micro ONOS. It makes SD-RAN have more liberty to move forward. So that is one of the options on my table. I will think about it and we'll discuss it with Larry. What is good or what is pros and what is cons. I will discuss it with Larry. So that
on this one, when you say a separate namespace, that's a separate Go module namespace, is it?
I mean, yes and no, but I would like to say it's separate our workplace. I mean, so.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I
And
Uh,
like really, you know, what I found with those Go modules like Onus API, you know, it's the common one really is the last one that can be updated. I mean, you can go ahead and update the individual components and still refer to an old version of Onus API that's on the lowest common version between them. Is that something that's open to you, or are you finding it
Yes.
difficult to?
Yes, of course. That is how Go is working. I know, but still, yeah, I should evaluate which one is the better. So yeah, I will also let you know once the decision is made.
Okay.
Sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
What exactly is a separated workplace? What exactly means a workplace?
So, for example, SD-RAN is currently under Onos project group in GitHub.
Yeah, the workspace.
Yeah, workspace, yes. So in the worst case, if we go with the second bullet option, we will copy and paste and little modify from that Onos GitHub workspace to, for example, Aether workspace, GitHub workspace, and make it separate from the micro Onos, I mean the Onos workspace. So to break a kind of dependency from Onos project modules. That was the goal of the second bullet option.
But it seems that there are two different things, right? So one, the GitHub workspace is basically where all the different repositories are located, right?
Yeah.
And then each of the repositories or each Go module is going to have its own dependencies, right? And those dependencies don't have anything to do, let's say, with the workspace itself, but it's more.
Yeah. So we can put them in the Onos project too, but at least I would like to mention here is if we go with the second option, then we have to create separate SD-RAN API repository, separate SD-RAN config, separate SD-RAN topo. All of those components should be separate from Micronos. So
Yes.
that is,
okay.
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
I understand your point. Okay. So basically what you're trying to do is you kind of separate the dependencies. Let's say leave the SD-RAN as a self-contained project and the ROC as a self-contained project, let's say.
Exactly. Yes. So that is one of the options.
Okay. Yeah, because and that's kind of one of the reasons why in our case we in our team we basically enable GitHub Actions on the whole Onos project organization, but we didn't merge any of those PRs because of the interdependencies with one another.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's kind of very challenging to handle that situation.
Yeah. So that is why I would like to suggest make the SD-RAN project separate from Onos, the common micro Onos project. But it's this option, and like Sean mentioned, well, we can choose another option that we can just go ahead upgrading the Onos API or whatever the Onos modules with latest Go and latest dependencies, and then release SD-RAN 1.6 later on with that way. That should be okay, but I'm a little afraid of breaking some other components like ROC or still I believe Onos Micro Onos Core is still using it. So that kind of things, yeah, I'm a little afraid of. Yeah.
So just so I'm clear, option one really was to continue with trying to upgrade everything and hold it all together.
Yeah. Yeah, regardless of other components like ROC or some other Onos core projects, because still we are maintaining it with some specific version. So still the existing project would work. But if they want to bump up their version, Go version and dependency version, then that would be in trouble.
Got it. Okay. Because of common dependencies.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of option two, how will we make a decision on whether this is something we're going to do? Is it decided?
Not yet. So I will talk with Larry later on. After the release. Actually, release 1.5, we don't really need to update anything in terms of Go and module dependencies. So 1.5 should be fine, but after 1.5 release, then I will revisit this option and discuss with Larry and all of you.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's clearer to me now.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a separate topic.
That's the separate topic. But if no other question, sounds good. Yeah, the next one is before this meeting, I talked with a Wise from University of Glasgow. He is assistant professor of this, and he is really interested with the SD-WAN project for his research topic. So we had a great discussion, and AR is actually I should share some SD-WAN tutorials and documents with him, so that he and his PhD students are follow it up. At least he or his students tries to deploy SD-WAN on their setup and then do some practical things on it. So we also briefly discussed the research, the potential research topic. One of them is about the secure communication within the near real-time rig. So basically, we are using gRPC protocol, but we would like to make it a little more secure. And second one was about the AI ML based RAN control or AI ML based self healing for near real time rig. So those kind of things are potential research topic, but in the future we will meet again, and then we will more elaborate and pick one of those research topics and then try to implement something and push that into the SD-WAN as a new feature.
Got it. Sorry, which university did you say he was with?
University of Glasgow.
Okay. I'm not sure how to spell it. GLO.
GLASGOW.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
Oh, Glasgow. Yeah. Right. Sorry. Yeah. It's just over the road. Okay. Great. Thanks. Woo Jung.
Yeah. That's all.
Okay. I guess this was Larry's one, Linux Foundation collaboration updates.
I think Timon put that one.
I did that, and maybe I'll provide a quick update today. But I think when Larry and others are back, we should talk further. But we have this ongoing effort to try to become more well strategically aligned across the LF portfolio of mobile work. And so I think I shared here earlier, but we've kicked off a RIC evaluation project that's getting funded, and Remito is going to act as the contractor to do the work and do an evaluation of really all the various open source RIC components that are out there today to try to help the industry consolidate around a common direction if possible. And so that's kicked off, but the final report is kind of expected in December, so it's going to take a little time still.
Yeah. In December, did you say?
Yeah, December.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
And then furthermore, there's this notion of 5G super blueprints inside LFN, and also these notion of blueprints inside Ether on-ramp that we are kind of more familiar with. And we're trying to figure out, the top level goal, or what's been agreed to, is that LF wants to consolidate around SD core and really sort of make it the core of choice, which is great news. So it would become sort of part of the standard, or I don't know if I can say all of the super blueprints, but headed in that direction. So SD core really gets becomes the core of choice. But one way to maybe approach that is these notion of LF super blueprints are quite broad. I mean, they include a lot of edge components. They include CNCF cloud components. It's not just the mobile core and RAN, whereas the Aether on-ramp is really about core and RAN and maybe a little bit of ROC to help orchestrate and connect it together, configure it.
It also, Timo, it also has a couple more things related for end-to-end testing, like UE SIM, OAI recently, and also Genome vSIM. So,
right, but I guess in the way I described it, those are all different flavors of RAN. It might be real RAN,
yes,
simulated RAN, but
yep,
yeah. So the Aether on-ramps are all basically SD core and a flavor of RAN, right? And so could we kind of nest? Is there a way to kind of think of the Aether blueprints as kind of nested inside of the LFN super blueprints? And so the Aether blueprint provides RAN and core, and it's always SD core, and there are a couple of different flavors of RAN. And then the broader LF blueprint includes edge and cloud and whatever else and kind of components around it. Might that be a way to pull the two worlds together? It number one achieves SD core being part of all the blueprints, but it then also kind of fits the on-ramp model and a number of different flavors of RAN into the model as well. So this is we just talked with LF today, and Larry couldn't join that call but I've had an email exchange with him since. He's kind of in favor of this view. Larry's going to put together maybe a slide or two, but I think we should try to package this and then present it to the LFN TSC. That's kind of the path forward. And if others wanted to be involved, but if we can think about it and package it together, I think there's an interesting path here to help consolidate various efforts.
Right. And Timon, do we know where we can look into these super blueprints to have a rough idea of how they are, how they work, and so on, to see how much effort would be needed in our case to integrate the SD core into those blueprints?
Yeah, so yes and no. I'm going to Google it right now. I have before. What I Googled last time was a little bit dated, but LFN 5G super blueprint, it does come
So they are
up.
called super blueprints?
Yeah, and so let me push to chat right now. That's in chat now. You can kind of see, but be warned that this is, I think, somewhat dated. And when we brought this up with them, they recognized that this had aged out to some degree,
And I think somehow the wiki, there is a link to the wiki here, is more up to date.
Can you provide a link? Yeah, maybe this is pretty dated.
Yes.
But just in what's on the screen now, you see it in the lower left. Well, it's gone now, but Magma was kind of like the core of choice here. You see it in purple.
On the right?
On the lower left, where it says core there.
Right there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so Magma was kind of the core of choice, but Magma, as you'll all recall, was kind of this project coming out of Facebook, Meta, and has really lost momentum and never really got a 5G upgrade. And so there's really a recognition that SD core should really take its place. And I think LF is acknowledging that as well. And so, that's kind of the I don't know what to say, basic first step. And that's, I think there's broad agreement on that, which is great. But then I think if we could sort of pull in on-ramp as well and the various RAN options, I think that might be an even more powerful way to think of merging the two work streams.
the link is in there in the document, and I'm just going to put in that this is replacing Magma from Meta. I'm going to say it's waning a little bit. Okay. Okay, so did I capture the action there? It's really to package a proposal on embedding SD Core into these blueprints and present it to the LFN TST.
I would say it's just a little bit more than just SD core. I'm also, an on-ramp, I would say.
Right.
So it pulls in all the various core and RAN that are pre-integrated in on-ramp, right?
Oh, then it would be more like Ether rather than just SD core. Ether itself, because on-ramp is just a way to deploy the different Ether components, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Maybe just remove on-ramp is just Ether itself, plain.
A little bit. I mean, on-ramp
to
me implies right now these these very specific combinations of the various flavors of RAN, which you mentioned before,
right.
which includes simulated RAN, OAI, and everything with core, and how they're pre-integrated and ready to plug in.
Understood. Yes.
And on-ramp has its own notion of blueprint, so we're trying to merge the blueprints together somehow. That's why I think on-ramp makes sense, at least for our context right now, as we're talking about this.
Right. Hopefully that doesn't take the meaning away from it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is that's that one. Okay. On rock, I would say, yeah, I have an action item to go back and continue updating the wiki on the steps involved to update the model for the rock, and that's something hopefully I'll get to this coming week. I'll just put it on the notes just so that it's mentioned. On the any other topics?
Since we have some time, I can provide an update of what has been happening with the SD core.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, since last week, from the canonical team, Gulame helped us implement part of the roadmap to move towards a release 18. So something that we have in the roadmap probably is in the SMF. We are using we were using an OMEC project PFCP component. However, on the UPF, we are using an open source, another project basically is called Go PFCP. Part of the roadmap that we indicated basically was to replace the OMEC project PFCP with this other kind of like a streamlined PFCP implementation, and that was something that got completed last week. Again, Gulami from Canonical opened the PR, I reviewed the PR, we went back and forth, and now that is merged. So that's kind of part of the implementation of the roadmap. So for now, N4 interface is based on release 16, which is what is currently supported in this Go PFCP component. As like a side effect of this, so I archived the PFCP repository from the OMEC project and also archived a TLB repository, which was another dependency for the PFCP repository. Now we are kind of working on trying to get a newer versions of the Go PFCP into the UPFs to try to kind of align to one of the latest versions that they have. Yeah, and then there's some activity as well from the canonical team with several PRs on the different components of the NF to kind of keep improving the caching capabilities in there. And what I have been doing is also working on implementation of the roadmap, creating the messages for the service-based interface following release 18. So that's something that I'm still experimenting with, is a repository using the OpenAPI, a custom version of the OpenAPI repository to create all these different messages automatically. I'm trying to kind of keep playing with those to see what is the best way to kind of have this implemented into the OpenAPI repository, our OpenAPI repository that is being used by the different NFs. Again, targeting release 18, for 3GPP release 18 from that perspective. Yeah, so that's, I think, it's an update of what has been happening at least on the SD core activity.
Yeah, there was too much detail in there for me to try to summarize, Gabriel.
Yeah, no,
I mean, if you want to.
no, that's fine. That's good enough. I mean, moving towards the implementation, that's good. I can put a little bit more details after the meeting, but yeah, that's kind of like just a summary.
Well, Gabrielle, it might be really nice for you to come to present this, maybe with, I mean, anything moving towards release 18. It sounded to me like what you're doing is really very PFCP focused. It's not really sort of broadly release 18. I can see how it's a step towards release 18, but there are probably a lot of other things that need to get done as well. Would that be correct?
Yes, so we can actually take a look. Let me share the link where we have the roadmap. So we, as part of, let me see where it is. So I shared through the chat a link. Sean, since you are sharing, do you mind to open that link? Okay, so this is kind of what we have for now. The roadmap that we kind of work to move the SD core to a newer release, right? So as you can see, the first part is just the specification upgrade itself. Since we were working on this kind of May, we were thinking probably in release 17. By June, I know that the 3GPP had a release freeze for release 18. So we can actually move to release 18 directly. In this case, we're just doing a specification upgrade, right? So we're not doing any features at the moment. As a first part, again, we have the different interfaces that are part of the network. SBI is full as under our control, because for now we are basically, all the network functions are coming from ourselves. And that's why we don't kind of worry too much. Second step, which is the PFCP, as well, is under our control, in the sense we are using our own UPF, we are on SMF. So that's basically the higher level. The items C and D, that's a little bit, need to be a little bit more cautious. 1.C and 1.D. N1 and N2 interfaces, because in the case of the N1, that is not dependent only on what we support in the core, but also what the UE is going to support in the core. The item D, the N2 interface, again, is not only what we support in the core, but also what the GNOD B's support, right? So that's why we can start with this priority. So SBI and PFCP, that are the interfaces that are full under our control. And below in the details, we are kind of like indicating what actually we are doing in there. For the GNOD B SIM, also we have some. Okay, yeah. So now, since you're good in the details. So let's stay in item 1. In the part A, that's what I was kind of mentioning. So I just share a custom version of the OpenAPI repository to be able to create all these different components. So these comments are from, again, before the release 18 freeze. So now we know that we're going for the release 18 for certain. And then for the PFCP, the second bullet of the PFCP, that's basically what we mentioned about the UPF using Go PFCP, while the SMF was using our own PFCP. So that's where, thanks to the canonical team, now we're using basically Go PFCP in both ends. So that's what we have so far. At least we are working on implementing for the roadmap, at least on the core network. So it's item A and B. Then after, depends on the resources that we have, and then we're gonna move into C, D, and E. I don't think there's many changes for the GTPU part, specification. So that's why we put it as a lower priority in there. Then Ajay for the item 2, the G0B, Ajay start kind of adding a few things, improvements that we want to do also on the G0B SIM to kind of add additional more capabilities. Because at the moment, for example, the G0B SIM only creates ICMP packets, but he's interested in adding also support to data support to be able to kind of create kind of like a tunnel. So any kind of traffic can go through the UEs that are part of this G0B simulator. Item 3, also since we rely on MongoDB and Kafka, something that I enabled like a month or 2 months ago is basically one point is to go to the latest versions of MongoDB and Kafka. So one of the things that I did, I moved to the latest version of Mongo and Kafka that work as it is without making any change on the core network. So as of probably last month, the latest versions for Mongo was 15.6.7 and for Kafka was 29.3.3. So I updated from 13.6.4 to 13.16.4 for MongoDB, and Kafka was upgraded from 20.04 to 23.04. So those are not the latest, but this is just a upgrade of version without having to make any changes on the core network. So to go to the latest versions, then we need to start making changes on the core network. So that is something that we need to do. Item 4 is basically this kind of dashboard, CI/CD help that Ajay is interested in having in this case to see what is the status of the different actions for the different repositories in a consolidated manner. So as of now, we have, as part of the project, we have around like 25 active repositories. So, this would be a good way to see a consolidated view of all these different components to see everything, whether everything is going as expected or everything is working as expected. Then the other component of what we are interested about is also MongoDB and Kafka, also Purdue already work on this scalable SD core to scale the different NFs on the control plane primary. We are at least part of the next release for the SD core. The idea would be to bring that scalability capability into the SD core or into the release. Hopefully it happens, probably not necessarily September, but hopefully it happens in September or soon after that. So for this, Bilal from Purdue is working with Ajay to basically, Ajay is betting, whether all these changes are what is needed for the scalability component, and that will be merged on the as part of the SD core. The other part also, the performance results for the UPF. So we have been seeing a few kind of like messages on the Slack or issues on the UPF that people don't necessarily kind of are able to achieve the latest and greatest performance. And of course, what we did is we basically have run several tests. Basically, Suresh run several tests under different scenarios for different UPF deployment modes. I think he tested DPDK mode and AF packet mode. And run different tests with T-Rex and also a iPerf test to kind of show, all the different throughput that is being achieved and then under the specific parameters. So people know what to expect and not necessarily know, when they get some low throughput, whether they can know that is the expected throughput or whether something is misconfigured or there may be another reason for that. So yeah, so this is what we are working towards too from the roadmap perspective.
Okay, thanks, Gabriel. I will just put the link in there.
Yeah, I think we already put it below, but of course, the roadmap is somewhere in there. But since we're moving to new meetings, so that's where it gets lost. Or probably we can put it on the top of the page, because in every new meeting, it's gonna go down
Yeah.
because we already added that one probably like 2 months ago, maybe. But anyway,
Yeah.
so-
Let's see. Yeah, it's linked there. Linked there. Okay. I mean, I think there's no harm to link it anytime
Sure,
it's mentioned.
that's fine.
I mean, that
That's
would be
fine.
my preference.
No problem.
So, and you said it was executing on parts 1A and 1B.
Yeah, that's what we are concentrating at the moment, which are the most relevant. But again, there are a few other items that we have been actually working at the same time. But from release upgrade perspective, we are fully concentrated on 1A and 1B.
Sure. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Were there any other topics anyone wanted to cover today?
I have one issue, but since Daf is not here, I need his help. I sent a message yesterday to him. So I need to create a new tag for the web console. So again, the Canonical team added some front end capabilities to the web console, the web UI, and they want me to create a new tag. Since we automate that process through GitHub Actions, by just creating a new PR with the version, changing the version file, the tag is supposed to be created automatically. But for some reason, when I approved the PR yesterday, nothing was created. And when checking in the logs for the GitHub Action logs, it says that the bad credentials basically. So I don't know whether something changed with the token or what, but yeah, the tag was not created because of this message or this bad credentials message. So I'm trying to debug that issue as well, and also trying to get from DAF some feedback to see whether something changed with the tokens or whether he did something on that regards. But yeah, so that's something that I'm waiting on DAF to get some feedback.
Okay. I'm just looking to see what other topics are usually discussed. On infrastructure, were there any infrastructure updates this week? I don't know really who would that be? DAF, I guess, would be the one to report on those.
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just put in that we've no. Okay. And I think we've a topic on each of the other ones. On the yeah, I can see. Yeah, I was referring to like the OAI blueprint and that kind of thing in reference to on-ramp status. So are all
No,
those?
that OAI blueprint. That the thing is that Bilal was visiting Intel labs here in Oregon 2 weeks ago now, and during his visit, we work on this enabling the blueprint
Oh, I
for
see.
the OpenAir interface. Yeah.
Okay, so he's progressing those offline, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, that I completed during the week that he was here.
I
That
see.
was completed, so it's already merged, and you know, everybody can start actually using that.
Okay. Okay then. Anyone else have any other topics? I should copy this. Oh. If nobody else has any other topics, I think we can close. Thanks for your attendance and
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
thanks everybody.